Welcome to Pretty Good at Talking, a companion podcast to my book, Pretty Good at Walking. I'm your host, Vince Strawbridge. This podcast brings you conversations with the people who appear throughout our family's 2,650-mile journey along the Pacific Crest Trail. Today's guest is Angie Hashioka, who we first met years ago on a soccer field in Central Florida. When our family was struggling through the Southern California section of the PCT with Monica barely able to walk, Angie became our trail angel, opening her home to us exactly when we needed it most. But here's what I love about these conversations. Just when I thought I was going to be telling stories about our adventure on the PCT, Angie shared her own wilderness experience from decades ago. Let's just say that compared to what she went through as a teenager, our family's 5 months on the PCT sounds like a luxury resort vacation. Let's dive in. I wanted to welcome you back to Pretty Good at Talking. This is a companion podcast to the book that I wrote called Pretty Good at Walking. We are doing a series here where we're interviewing people who make appearances in the book or connect in some way to the book and talking about those intersections. And today I'm with Angie, who shows up at a very significant moment in our book, in the story of our hike on the Pacific Crest Trail. Welcome, Angie. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Vince, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's been a minute.
I know. I've seen you online, and I've talked to you, but I haven't seen your face in a long time.
Yeah, it's aged a bit, I'm thinking.
Oh, well, we're both a little more gray. Okay.
That's right. I was in the yard the other day. I walked out into the yard the other day, and we have a lot of people that play soccer in our front yard because we put a pretty nice field out there. So everybody comes and plays, and we've got lights out there and nice grass. And so everybody's out there practicing, and they don't even know who we are. We just have to drive through these strangers on the way in. Well, one day, a neighbor of ours was talking to a lady out there who had her daughter there playing soccer. And she said, pointed at Monica, my wife, and said, who is that? Who is that lady? And somebody said, well, that's Monica. She lives here. This is her house. And then the person said, yeah, but who's that old guy walking around with her from time to time? So it's like, I'm stuck. So my age level is starting to separate from Monica's in appearance, at least.
Well, she's such a natural beauty. I wouldn't expect anyone to keep up with Monica.
We met you in Lakeland, and we met you through soccer.
Yes. I remember that soccer field in front of your house. That was such a great space. I moved to Florida. It was like 2010 or something like that. It's been a while. I got my daughter into soccer right away. That was her thing. And I remember, I think it was probably maybe the first game. We may have been, I think you were coaching, and you were maybe the coach of the other team. And I just remember you walking up and down the field, and you didn't have your shoes on. I was like, this guy. But after the game, I think you came over and introduced yourself, and you were like, hey, who are you guys? Because, we were new. I think just knew that we weren't from around there.
Yeah.
And that's how we originally met. And I think the second weekend out playing soccer, Monica was there, and I remembered sitting and watching the game and just kind of looking over, and there's this beautiful woman just waving, and I was like, oh, and I was thinking, oh, who's she waving at? Oh, I was like, and then after that game, you came over, and then all the kids came over, and Monica came over, and we were just talking, and then that was it. You guys just kind of took us in. Okay, you guys are Strawbridges now. You just welcomed us into your family, and it was so great because we were far away from home, so that was just awesome to meet you guys.
Yeah, Kaia was so fun. I can remember coaching her. I think I got to coach her for the first time in All Stars at the end of the season.
You did.
And I just remember she had this like she seemed very sophisticated and a little like subtle in her like awareness of everything. She was clever with the ball. She was clever in her comments. She was kind of
Uh-huh.
understated. And I remember thinking, oh, this is a neat kid. Like I really liked Kaia.
I mean that was her thing. She just took to that ball. I remember when she was hardly even walking, and I gave her a little soccer ball, and I said, this is, you can only use your foot, just kick it. And she was hardly walking, and off she ran. She just started dribbling, running full speed as fast as she could and dribbling the ball. And I was like, whoa, I think we have a soccer player here, which is great. I wasn't any good at it, but I was glad that she had that outlet. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Let's see. So you said that was, when did you move? 2010, you said?
Yeah, it was around 2010, maybe
Okay. And
2009.
then, and then life took you away from us. You went back to LA.
Yes. Kai and I moved back to LA probably 2000. I guess we were only there for 2 years.
How old was Kaia when you left?
She was 8. She was 10.
Okay. When you left?
She was 8 when we went there.
Okay. That's so funny. It feels like she was around. It just feels like you guys were around longer than that to me.
You know, it does, because
I think we got to go fishing. I think we went fishing
oh yeah,
once
um,
with Kaia. That was
that was a
fun.
first for us. We usually fishing here, we would be in the ocean or in a trout stream. So bass fishing, that was the first for us. I remember um when we first moved there, I didn't really do much research into Lakeland, but I was envisioning something else. I knew there were gators and stuff like that there, but I didn't realize how much wildlife there was. But our house kind of was on a lake, and there were no fences or anything. And Kai was learning how to cast, and there was a drop off about 6 feet, and then to the water. And she would run up to the edge of the dirt, and I was watching her through the kitchen window, and I was like, well, I better go out there. She's getting a little too close to that edge. And I go out there, I'm like, Kaya, you don't want to fall into the lake. And I look in the water, and I'm not kidding, it probably was a 12-foot gator
Oh, wow.
head, just looking at her. And I'm like, Kaya, how long has that gator been there? She's like, oh, it's fine, Mama. He's been there the whole time, just watching. And I was like, oh my God.
That's a different
Yeah,
sort of living. Aiden was born, my oldest, Aiden was born, his Kaia's age, was born in San
yeah.
Francisco. And we were out there and we were working. I was working at a church as a youth pastor for a
Uh-huh.
couple of years. And then we just loved it. And we loved a lot about it, especially you could be at the beach in 20 minutes or you could be in the mountains in 2 hours. And it was just like the vistas were so great. The scenery was so great. And then moving back to Florida, I can remember thinking, man, I do not want to go back to Florida after having experienced all of this. But the thing that I noticed when I got back to Florida was that I had been missing and didn't know it, all of the life. Like there's bugs and snakes and
Birds.
frogs and alligators and there's everything, birds everywhere. Yes. Yes. I didn't even notice how many bird sounds there were always until I started videoing some stuff for our YouTube channel. When we were starting to practice hike for the PCT, I started making some videos to just see if I wanted to do that as a part of what we were doing. And I would listen back to the videos and I'd be like, man, there are bird sounds going on all the time.
The
It's
birds
crazy.
and the lizards,
So,
we have tons of lizards here too, but they're all brown or gray. That
mhm.
was one of the craziest things about Florida, is the colors of the lizards and the birds and the storks. I remember the first time I
Mhm.
saw a stork, and it was this bird is looking at me high level. It's like, this huge bird. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool.
it was
Yeah, it's
neat.
very different
Yeah.
places. That was one of the things that actually drew us to hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in our decision making, just was because we were so familiar with Florida and the East Coast, the Appalachians, and all that stuff that we thought it would be cool to experience a place that was completely different. I mean, that, and we had spent time out there when Aiden was born, and so it kind of drew us out your
Yeah.
direction. But but I
The
don't think
mountains.
I tend to in the relationships in my life and friendships in my life, I tend to assume that they are sustained and retain whatever measure of, validity that they have, but I don't maintain them at a distance ever. I just assume they're alive.
Uh-huh.
And, um, which probably is a flaw in some respect, but there was a sense in which, I don't know when, I don't remember when we first were in contact again as it related to our hike or that we would be out there. But I remember it feeling like, oh, it feels like just yesterday that we were talking to you.
Yeah, I feel the same. I can't remember how I found out you guys were doing the PCT. I don't, you may have just sent me a text message and told me you were going to start at this time and you would let me know if, when you got closer or something like that. So I was thinking about you guys a lot. And I don't know if you were posting, you were, you were posting on,
Probably on Facebook. It could have been on Facebook because I think you were active on Facebook. I would see your posts from time to time, but
yeah,
maybe not. Yeah, I do think it was Messenger on Facebook that we
was it?
first reconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as time went on, I thought, gosh, I wonder if they're getting closer. They must be, in California by now. And just wondering if we were going to, get to meet up and see you guys again. We were really excited.
It's interesting to me, sort of, especially people that are not familiar with the activity of the hike. Now, I wasn't either. I mean, like when we'd seen the movie Wild, I think that's about a Pacific Crest Trail hike, but that was the limits of our exposure um, to it. Because there are a lot of people that if I said, hey, we're going to do a through hike of the Pacific Crest Trail, that wouldn't mean anything to them. Like they wouldn't have a category for it or really know what it was like. And this is probably going way back into your memory about a thing that would have been significant to us. But I'm wondering if you have like a recollection of how that landed or what you were thinking, like what are they doing? Like how did you interact with that idea?
I had never really heard of the PCT trail. Um, but
Hmm.
having lived on the West Coast and I did spend some time in Oregon as well. I lived there for a couple of years. So I'm very familiar with the landscape of Washington and Oregon and California. Um, so I kind of knew how big of an undertaking this was. Um, but I wasn't surprised, honestly, just because, having gotten to know you guys, um, I just wasn't shocked. It was just like, oh well, of course they are, because that's how they do. That's how they do life. Just like enjoying everything about it and doing as much as you can. Um, and I figured, if anyone could do it, then you guys could do it.
Oh, that's fun.
So I was excited for you guys.
I guess we were probably mid-October, it took us a while to get out of the Sierra. And I think I was posting, but not as often when we were on the PCT. So I wasn't really updating as regularly as I did in future trails. And I might have been even further behind, but there was a point at which, I reached out. And now, just so you know, in terms of the context of all of that, and you probably do know, but but what was happening with us is everybody's feet hurt at the very beginning of the trail really badly.
Yeah.
Bad enough that we would stop for 2 or 3 breaks a day. And we had heard that if you take a spoon or something and scrape the scar tissue, that it helps and all that stuff. So we would have these like scraping, breaks where we would try to revive our feet for the next, few hours or whatever. And we changed our socks all the time, and our feet were a really big deal.
Yeah.
And it took about 300 miles maybe. And then everybody's feet started to get a little bit better and a little bit better. And Monica's just kind of never did. They always kind of bothered her.
Right.
But then we started to push really hard to try to make it to the Sierra to get there before the winter kind of landed.
Uh-huh.
And in that push, Monica developed what we were sure was plantar fasciitis after a while. We didn't know for a while, but after a while we figured that out. And so we were kind of racing through there. And when we were approaching you, she was in a real bad place in terms of not knowing whether or not she could complete the trip. I mean, it was really pretty desperate. And we just stayed over the hill from you in Wrightwood, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'd stayed in Wrightwood, gone off trail that night, and I texted you, and you said, "Oh, yes, please stay with me tomorrow." Well, that next day was a 27-mile push.
Oh.
Now, most of it's downhill, but it was a 27-mile push, and it's really crazy because you come up out of Wrightwood, or that road crossing out of Wrightwood, and you have to climb about 7 or 8 miles, 6 or 7 miles, something, to a water cache. But we had heard that there were hikers that were contaminating the water cache. Or not hikers, somebody had contaminated the water cache, is what we were hearing as a rumor.
Yeah.
And so we had to carry water enough for 27 miles, which is a whole lot heavier. So we couldn't break up that section for water. So that was really bad. So we started the day heavy, started the day on a climb, and Monica's feet just really got bad. And then I think when I texted you or messaged you, I think I was messaging you, I don't know, from the Garmin, maybe from my phone, but I messaged you, and we were shooting for Cajon Pass, which is kind of an obvious intersection at that point.
Yeah.
But it became apparent as we were kind of coming toward the evening that we were not going to make it to you. And we were like, oh no, this is terrible. And so I found a road crossing, I think, at some point, and I messaged you and said, I don't know if it's a road. It might be a road. We'll see if it's a road, but we'll try to make it to there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I don't know what was happening on your end. I'd love to get a sense of like how all of this stuff is developing, whether you think we're like doing well and just fine, or if you can tell that we're in a mess as we're kind of approaching you.
I didn't know just how bad Monica's feet were. I knew she was hurting pretty badly, but I didn't know just like she couldn't walk. She couldn't hike anymore. She needed a rest. But I was working and holding my cell phone and waiting for the call. 3 days I was waiting for you guys to call and say, hey, can you come get me? And I was so excited. And Kaia was, did they call? I'm like, not yet. And then right after work that day, you guys gave me the call, and I was like, oh, they're ready. And then you dropped the pin where you were, and I was like, okay, let's go get them. So we drove, and it was I don't know, it was like 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, I don't know, 30 minutes. But it was funny because I was like, oh, it's so dark out here once you get over the hill away from the city lights. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, how am I gonna find them? So I'm just driving, trying to follow this little pin through these kind of dirt roads, but just driving really slowly. I don't want to miss them. And then eventually I'm just driving along, and I think it was you that jumped out of the bushes. And we were like, yes, we found him. And we were so excited. We all jumped out. But we were just so happy that you guys were going to come stay with us. But yeah, we were just trudging along with the work and school and everything just waiting for you guys. So that was really fun to get to come get you guys off the trail.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, and I think we were going to stay for a night or something, was the original plan. And then we came and you and Monica were like, her feet had gotten so bad.
Yeah.
That I think like, and you worked in a clinic.
And yeah, I worked at the hospital.
Right? Oh, okay. Okay.
So, yeah, yeah, and when you guys got in the car.
What was it? Okay, so you read the book and my description of it, but I sort of have this in this I can't remember exactly how it all transpired in terms of your, like, how it was orchestrated. But was it between you and Monica, like to get her seen by your doctor, or I don't know. It just felt like we were to us. I know it felt like, oh my gosh, Angie is just taken over the question of the feet. Like, you just kind of took it over for us and like took it off our plate. It was so awesome.
I have experience with plantar fasciitis myself, and I happen to work in radiology. So I just brought her in, and I said, here's, my friend Monica, she needs to get some x-rays done, make sure that there's nothing wrong with the bone. And it just worked out, and we were able to get her in, right away. It's nice to have those, benefits sometimes with where you work. So it just worked out, and really good radiologist, and Monica and I went and talked to the radiologist. She was looking at her feet, and she was like, yeah, well, you're gonna have to stay off your feet for 6 weeks. And I'm thinking, I mean, I would love to have you guys for 6 weeks, but I'm thinking they want to get back on the trail. Like, they want to finish this. They're almost done. Because you guys were coming south, you're almost done. You're almost to Mexico. And so I tell Dr. Dang, she's a cute little woman. She's just walked from Canada, and they're walking to Mexico. She can't sit for 6 weeks. She's got to finish this. And her eyes got as big as saucers. She's like, wait, what? Never heard of such a thing. And I'm like, yes, they've done all this. They're not going to, give up now. It was just so funny to get her reaction to the whole situation. And also all my coworkers, like, I've been talking about you guys all the time, constantly. Oh, the Strawbridges are here. The Strawbridges are there. And they knew what you guys were doing too. And so when I was, I'd be walking down the hall with Monica getting her x-rays, and people would be looking, like, there she is. There she is.
And she's limping, dragging her foot.
There's Monica. She just walked from Canada. Yeah, so it was just really funny. But Dr. Ding, I said, she's got to get back on the trail. Yes, she does need some rest, but let me know, yes or no. I mean, she has to say, yeah, you have to stay on your feet for 6 weeks, but come on, give us the real truth. How long is this gonna take? And she was like, well, just rest and ice, and then when you feel better, I guess you get back on the trail or something like that. So that's, we came home and there was no serious damage done. So that was good.
Oh, that's so great. One of the memories, I mean, so many memories that I have, like when you're trying to write and recreate and trying to be truthful about the whole story, as truthful as you can, because I really feel like the mysteries of what was happening for my kids, and was sort of like, it was there and I wanted to find it rather than make it up, And so in telling the story, I was trying to reflect, and it was so awful, but it was so fun because I think it, like, let me ask it this way. Like, in the book, the one conversation that I include is the one about Georgie's scar on her head that she got playing at your house. And I thought,
it didn't bother us any at all. And it was almost like it's this mark of, like even our scars are this marks of a friendship, like, or a memory and stuff. And I wondered in reading the book,
Yeah.
whether you're like, oh, or if it was like, oh, like that's a good memory too. Like even that is a good memory.
Yeah, I remember, well, when it was happening, I was like, "Ooh, I feel so terrible." Uh, but going back and reading the book, I was reminded about it again. That time it was funny.
Okay, hold on. I'll tell people what happened. Georgie Georgie and the kids. Monica and I went out for the evening and
Yeah.
left the kids with Angie and Kaia. And Georgie tried to jump. They were jumping back and forth, I think, to pillows from the couch. Is that right? And then Georgie overdid it and hit her head on the coffee table and had to get some stitches.
Yes.
Which was far harder on that clinician that did the stitches, because he'd never done anything on a kid. And I was sitting with that guy and he was about to lose his mind. Can you keep that kid quiet? I was like, no, it's a kid. Just do the stitches.
Get it done.
But anyway, that was what happened. But for me, it was never a bad memory.
Well, I just felt bad, of course. I mean, poor little Georgie. At that time, she was so small. And then she's got this gash in her head. But they were being rambunctious kids. They were having a blast.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nighttime. They couldn't be outside, so I mean, I just let them go for it, and that's what happened. Poor thing.
No, yeah, well, maybe I'm just saying it was like, for us, it's not a negative memory at all. It's a memory about a friendship,
Yeah.
So it wasn't weighted,
Okay,
and it would happen anywhere. We put our kids like Georgie has a scar. I don't know if you have heard that story, but she was on this Continental Divide Trail and was petting a ranger's dog. And the ranger's dog bit her finger and cut it like wide open, And so it's just weird how the fondest memories of all things are the hardest thing, these hard moments,
to go
or
through.
these something that you have. Yeah, you just carry a memory of a thing, and it's kind of a neat way.
Yeah, that's how life is. And, sometimes I tell Kaia, it's like, one day we're going to laugh about this. It's going to be a funny
great.
story. When we're going through it, we could be just like so upset and like, how are we going to get out of this mess? Or what are we going to do now? One day we're going to, look back and it's all going to be funny. And that's how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, in the trail culture, they always say the trail provides, and it does really seem like when you need it the most, along comes the help.
Yeah, that was one of the.
I think they think of it as serendipity, and I think of it as providence, like divine intervention in a moment where you're being cared for, And it's fun when it can be through friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny that you talk about how when you guys came to stay with me, you were in such a bad way, but Kaia and I, we were just so excited. I guess that's kind of selfish, but we were so excited just to have you guys. We weren't like putting ourselves out or anything. It's like or actively trying to help or something like that. We were just like, yes, let's go play with the Strawbridges.
Well, it was great too because we got to be there for Halloween. Like, it was perfect timing.
I know. And it was so funny. You guys dressed up for Halloween using only what was in your packs.
That's right. I do. I still have those pictures. Maybe I should somehow incorporate them into this. This
put a couple of those pictures up there. I mean, you guys did pretty good using only what was in your packs. Georgie was a mummy.
I think she used our Tyvek sheets, like our ground sheets, and wrapped herself up like a mummy.
Everybody wrapped her up with those, and it was so funny. And then everyone else found their costumes, and then Monica was the tent. It was so cute. You guys are so creative and just fun energy.
I remember
That's a
too, and
hike.
I think I remember it accurately. I told it in the story about Kaia coming out with an old picture of the kids, and then we recreated that picture too, those years
Yeah.
later.
Wasn't that the picture with the Georgie with the scar or the
Yeah, that night. I
stitches?
think it was that night before there was pre-scar.
Okay, that was the night.
Oh
Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
see
that
the
was
picture.
great. Yeah,
Yeah, we had so many good times with you guys in Florida. It's just so nice to be able to reconnect back across the country in California.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that was great. It was so great, and I don't know, like I mean, and you read the book, but I don't know. It wasn't necessarily terribly obvious. These are spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the book, but um, I had a friend who's an Orthodox Christian, and so he's always looking for the symbolism and the icons, and where is it, Vince? Like, I need to see it in the story. You need to show me and all that stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know where it is. I mean, I guess the monuments are kind of icons, and there's some things like that, that are genuine, like, and targets as friends that you can sort of target that are significant and meaningful. But
Yeah.
the thing that was so fun in terms of our time with you was that I discovered and looking back at the pictures, and when I took the dates of the pictures, was the day that we came out of South Kennedy or Kennedy Meadows South, which is sort of the signifying entrance to the desert, or you finish the Sierra. But from that day until the day that we touched the monument was 40 days.
Yeah.
And so 40 days in the desert, I was like,
40 days in the desert.
this is like the Jesus trial in the desert. It's perfect. Now I can rewrite the whole desert story with all of our trials and tribulations and how we were fasting and tempted and overcame, and then we began our ministry, and it didn't really happen that way, so I couldn't write it that way. But I was trying to figure out what was the difference between our experience of, if you wanted to compare it in a way, what's the difference between our little desert moment and the desert of, Jesus wandering in the desert? If we're going to have a 40-day desert, is there anything significant that I could pull out of that or think about? And the thing that I kept thinking was, it was these waves of friends that kept coming and coming and coming. And Jesus was in the desert alone and tempted, and we were in the desert. We did have a trial. If Monica had written the book, it would have been about the trial of her plantar fasciitis, I'm sure. But for me, it wasn't all that bad. We just kept having friends come, and we saw you twice. But, in particular, it was that moment where you provided 3 days of rest and care, like in medical, like healing care, and 3 days of rest. And your name happens to be very much like Angel. and it was over Halloween, that's the night the spirits roam the earth. And I was like, what on earth? Like, this is the coolest, weirdest, coincidence ever, And I don't know if that was obvious in the book, but I wasn't trying to make it obvious. I just was one of those things. I was like, I can't believe this is in there. And it worked out that way. And I'm not even lying.
Yeah, I didn't realize, the 3 days of rest part, but I didn't put that together with but I did realize the 40 days in the desert, and I was like, oh wow, that's so cool, because you didn't plan it that way.
Yeah.
Right? This
No.
happened.
No, huh?
So it's still it's so weird that it happened like that. I was still thinking about that and just going, wow, how did that? There's some things just you can't explain.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. And then I think you came, was it Idlewild? We got to see you again?
Yeah, see, we knew you guys wanted to get back on the trail and get it done, but when you left, we were just kind of sad.
See, that's so funny, because from our side, we were like, gosh, I don't know. I mean, we'd love to see him again, but is it an imposition? I mean, they'd have to come all this way. So we're like, we don't want to bother. But then when you, I don't even know how we got it arranged, but you came out and it was so much fun. I think the kids stayed with you, didn't they? Or some of them anyway.
Yeah, I think Was it Aiden and Georgie? Maybe Aiden and Georgie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we were just kind of sad and missing you guys, and we knew you were going to go to Idlewild, and I had never been there. So I was like, well, let's just go, meet up with them again, and we'll have dinner and hang out a little bit longer while they still get to move forward. We can still just kind of visit with them a little bit longer. So it wasn't an imposition at all. And then, yeah, we had a great dinner, and Lucresta was there. She had come out to California for a conference or something, and then
That's right. She was teaching at a conference or attending a conference or something.
Yeah.
And so she had hiked up to meet us. And then we walked down with her, and then we joined you for dinner.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember whether we met you at dinner or whatever, but it was really fun to get to see you guys again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's hard to say how significant like it is to like just to have these little points or targets, like even at the beginning of a day, when you're like, hey, we get to see Angie tonight, we get to be with Angie and Kaia tonight and have dinner. And it's just those little things that are fun. Sometimes I would make them surprises for the kids, but sometimes I would tell them, depending on the mood, the general mood. June was usually in on the secret because she needed this. She needed the inspiration. That's right.
A little
But
something
it was
to
really
look for.
cool. Yeah, that's right.
Something to keep her moving.
Yeah.
It's funny, June. As I was reading the book, I was thinking, gosh, I wonder how Kaia would have been on this. I wonder if, I'm really kind of sad that I missed out on something like an experience like that with my own daughter. I'm really glad that you guys did this and, wrote the book so you can share it with other people. And when I was reading the book, it felt like I could transport myself back to all these places that I had been in the past and on these paths and Kennedy Meadows. And when you and Henry went fishing, I've been fishing in that river as well. So like, it just brought me back to so many good memories and good times. And even through Timberline, I worked at Timberline for about 2 years. So that was a good memory that you guys brought me back to. I worked up in the Silcox hut. I don't know if you saw that little warming hut up the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I worked in there.
Can you see it from the lodge?
Yeah. That little warming hut.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, I worked there.
Yeah, we sat and watched people skiing, late season skiers up there. I don't know if it's blown snow or what it is, but they just had the one run open, and so we could sit and watch people coming down.
Yeah, well, it's a glacier, so there's skiing and snowboarding all summer long.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think Kaia would have liked it? What do you think she would have been like?
Maybe a little bit kind of how Georgie was. Maybe a little bit like, I would say Kaia probably would break down, just because she didn't realize her strengths.
Oh.
And then those times when you're wet or cold, or I could see her breaking down. But as far as the hiking, I think she would have done well. I think she would have done well.
Yeah.
She probably, I think it's just the weather that probably would have gotten her.
I think the weather gets everybody.
Oh yeah.
Like the other day, when we did the Continental Divide Trail after that, one of the worst things, because you think, well, like we're pretty seasoned. I mean, we've done 2,600 miles. Then we've done almost the entirety of another 3,000-mile trail, and certainly we're seasoned and strong hikers. And we get into the Gila Wilderness, and it's kind of late season. It's getting colder, and the Gila is this box, it's a box canyon gorge. So you're just like not a box canyon, but it's a gorge. And so you're walking and you don't get much sun, but
Oh,
we're still getting up early. Late season, low sun. So we get up early and try to use all the sun that we can. But for the first 2 hours of walking, the trail crosses that river over 100 times through there. And so in the early morning, it's freezing and it's cold enough to make your feet numb.
yeah.
So we'd step in the river, cross the river, come out of the river, walk for about a minute and a half until you get to the point where your feet stop tingling and burning. And then you have to go right back in. And Georgie, who's at that point probably walked 4,300 miles, is bawling for an hour and a half for about 3 mornings in a row. And she's just like, you just have to let me cry. Like, I'm just going to cry. It's just miserable. And at some point, about 10:30, you get one little glimpse of the sun and you're like, oh, take your shoes off and let everything warm up and all that stuff. But I can remember the very end of the second trail, the very last day, I was just cursing in my head trying to get through this last day with these people that I'm trying to walk with, because I'm like, we are frauds. We are not through hikers. Like, we're complaining the last day. Like, somebody stepped on a little cactus and got a thorn prick in the bottom of their foot. And we'd come up to these little washouts where you had to drop down in and climb back out, and everybody's whining and complaining. I'm like, what on earth? So the complaining is constant. I think no matter who you are or how far into the project you are.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean,
So
that just makes all that little bit of sunshine all the better.
yeah. So tell me about I'm intrigued because the Kaia that I coached, I thought she always had this little smirk on her face, like she had a little more going on in her head than she was saying. Like, I was always like, what is that girl up to? Like, she's up to something. So she was always like, it was like, those kids that are kind of like I would always make little jokes and most of the kids wouldn't get them, but I always felt like Kaia was kind of in on it. Like, was she always a little bit ahead or sophisticated or some,
Yeah, when she was a baby, she started talking and walking and doing everything physical and language and stuff a little bit earlier than most people. But yeah, she's definitely got something going on behind there that she's not letting on. And if you try to get it out of her, pry it out of her, she does clam up even more. So you kind of have to trick her into. You kind of have to trick her
so
into.
you have techniques for getting her talking.
Yeah, like give her some food or something. Take her to a favorite restaurant if you want to get an answer about something or something like that. I mean, that's just what you have to.
Does she still live? Does she still live with you?
No. She's so independent. She really is. She was. I'll do it all by myself, mommy. When she was a baby, and it never stopped. So, she's on her own. She doesn't want any help. And I'm like, are you sure? I mean, okay. And then I'm thinking, well, all those bills, she'll be back in a year. And she's not. I'm like, well, are you making all your payments all the time? Yeah. It's like, why do you ask me that, Mom? You think I can't do it? I'm like, well, no, I think you can because you are. So, yeah, she's so independent. She wants to be on her own. So, that's how I was when I was her age. So, try not to get personal.
Oh, I wouldn't listen. That's one of the fun things about having 4 kids is you realize they are who they are, and that was one of the things I was trying so hard to do in the book is make sure that they maintain their own voice, that they were distinct and really fully themselves. June came to me the other day, and the great thing about this book is the way that it's done now. It's published on demand or print on demand, so there's not a stack of books laying around. So June came to me the other day and she said, Dad, you got this all wrong. And I said, what are you talking about, June? And she said, well, you've got me saying your brother is coming tomorrow. Well, I would never say that. It's Uncle Steven to me. I would say Uncle Steven is coming tomorrow. So she's been really helpful, even in that kind of a nuance where it's like, no, I would never talk that way in that situation, Dad. So she's been really helpful. And it's nice to be able to correct mistakes because I get to correct the spelling of Kaia as well.
Yeah, a lot of people spell Kaia that way, but you know, at the end of the book where you think with the list of people that you think, it's spelled correctly.
It was so weird. I checked that. Because when I was going to correct Kaia, because I corrected it the other day in the document, and I was finding all the instances where I'd used it. And I'm like, well, I got to correct that, got to correct that, got to correct that. And I hit for, going to Control F. I was going to advance to the next one. And I was like, I know I mentioned, did I forget to mention them in the acknowledgments? This is terrible. So I went to the acknowledgments and I'm like, wait, it spelled it right there. What is wrong with me? It's...
I mean,
so wait, hold on. So then I have to ask, were there any factual errors that I need to correct in the Angie and Kaia story and their interaction in it? Well, other than one, I know there's one, but I left it in there on purpose. But yeah.
Well, I think you said that I was a nurse.
Okay.
Well, you said that I was a nurse, but actually I'm an ultrasound technologist. So,
okay.
I mean,
do you want to be a nurse? I can push you. You can make you a doctor if you want me to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. Bottom line is I worked at a hospital and I could get her in for a direct.
I may leave that one in.
Right?
That's not one I did on purpose. That was a mistake. The one that I did on purpose was that I had you drive us to the trail the next day, which I don't think is the way that it happened. But I left it in there because there's so many confusing characters. Like there are too many characters that I had to conflate some characters because we ended up staying, I think, extra days, but maybe you drove us to trail. Do you remember?
Yeah, I drove you guys to trail, right?
So I got it right and thought I got it wrong.
Yeah, because I have a picture. Yes, I have a picture of Monica and I at the trail.
Oh, cool. Okay.
We jumped together.
All right.
But it's not that big of a deal.
I mean, so much of it. It's not.
There are so many people that you came across along this whole journey. I do not expect you to know or remember every little tiny detail and how to spell everything perfectly.
Well, there's an interaction. Well, I did it. So what's really fun about this thing, like I love getting to talk to people who it's just fun to connect up and see where people were and what was happening with them. And I got to talk to Airborne, who was a person that shows up in the book quite a few times. And I got to talk to him the other day. And what was so neat was there were kind of two things that he said that I was like, this is so crazy and so cool. I did not know that he'd gotten to Grumpy Bears ahead of us in Kennedy Meadows South and told them to keep the restaurant open for us. But the reason that we were able to go eat there was because he told them to keep it open. And I didn't have any idea of that. And the other thing that I thought was so cool was he was telling a story about another person that shows up in our book quite often, Troubadour. And he tells a story about being in the Sierra and showing up at a water source that Troubadour had expected to still be accessible, but we were going through late season, so there was no water. And he had extra water on him because he knew that area and knew to carry extra water. And so he was able to give Troubadour water. And I just thought how cool it is that all these people that because you only see it from your own experience, you don't see how other people are experiencing it. And that these other people who are experiencing each other in whole different, all these different ways, it just adds so much flavor to my understanding of it. It's really, really fun just to think about how all of that is working together,
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's not just you guys hiking along. There's all those different characters that you guys would, leapfrog each other and just happen upon each other, all these different places, and have some of the same experiences. And I miss this storm. And I think I saw your podcast with Airborne, and you were so upset because you hadn't reached this over this peak, and he was faster, so he had, and you were worried about the weather, but you guys actually ended up in better weather than him, even though he had reached the final destination where you wanted to camp and he was freezing. He was freezing and you guys were, relatively okay.
Yeah, and the thing that's crazy is like I spent a good hour of my life has been spent being angry at June about making us stop there and camp. I was just so mad at her for digging in her heels when other people's like safety was at risk, and I'm so mad at her. And I go to bed angry, and I wake up in the morning and I find out that was a. I mean, like, how many times do I do that in my life where I don't get to find out the waste of my frustration when it just like was all really being worked together for my good and I didn't even recognize,
Yes, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, June.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've had to thank June for something that she did that I thought was a bad thing for all of us.
Does she ever let you live it down? She won't let you live it down.
Oh my goodness!
Remember that time?
Listen, speaking of, and before we started recording, I told you the danger of these podcasts scenario is that it just ends up feeling like a personal conversation between two people until you forget that other people are going to listen. Well, I recently went on the Backpacker Radio podcast, and we were doing a podcast there, and I'm talking, and I'm like, I mean, I kind of have this sense of like, don't go there, but don't say it, don't talk about that. But it was so dumb, and I just said, yeah, well, oh well, I guess I'll tell it. But June walked the next trail. She walked it anemic, and I had no idea that she was anemic until we got home. We went to the doctor's office after the trail. And the doctor said, I can't believe she's not having trouble breathing just sitting here. Like her iron is that low.
That low.
And so, and it started happening because I thought I was being smart. So I started the first part of the trail hiking carefully and letting June lead, and everything was lovely. And it was like frolicking in the flowers. And then all of a sudden, June started sort of tapering down, and I couldn't understand it. And then we got into Colorado and we went above almost to 14,000 feet. And she said, my chest hurts. And I was like, oh, come on. Like another excuse. So I go and I check her pulse, and it's erratic, like crazy erratic. And I was like, oh no. So,
oh my goodness.
But you're probably 200 or 300 feet from the top, or yards of elevation from the top, maybe. And I was like, well, I guess over is the best. So we go over the top and got down. And after that, I thought, well, maybe elevation's the problem, So we kept going through Colorado, but we stayed as low as we could. We ended up finding a real low elevation route to get through that section, and it ended up great. But she was continually experiencing a lot of these things that I did not know were symptomatic of low iron. Like even some real dark, sort of almost suicidal ideation stuff that was happening. And of course, I'm such an idiot. I'm on Backpacker Radio talking about that, and people will actually listen to that podcast. So I was like, everyone's going to hear about what a horrible dad I am. Somebody's going to show up and throw me in jail. It's terrible. And now I'm doing it again.
Oh, well, it's not, I mean, you didn't do it on purpose. Sometimes it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. It's, you hear it when they just kind of don't want to get going, or they just feel a bit lazy. It's just like, it's like, all right, come on, let's go.
Well, yeah, and I was saying that to say, I really was telling you the story because I was thinking she never lets me live it down. She'll be like, we triple crowned, and my dad, she'll be like, and my dad made me walk the whole Continental Divide, and I was severely anemic. So she tells everybody that. Like, dude, I thought I was going to get Dad of the Year for dragging her down the trail. Turns out I'm the worst Dad of the Year.
Oh, well, she did it, so I guess she can use that against you.
She did it, yeah. Well, that's fun. I didn't know that those stories were attaching even geographically for you. That's really neat. Like that those were some of the places that you had been.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, I used to be a photographer for snowboarding. And so I would just go and chase storms all over the West Coast in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California. So yeah, I've been, to a lot of those places that you guys were talking about. It's just so cool to hear about you guys, and that bridge you guys crossed over the
Oh,
Columbia,
yes.
the Columbia River. I didn't realize would be so scary. Like I've driven, but I didn't realize it would be so scary to walk
Yeah, it's
across.
just like because it's just grading. So you look down through your feet all the way down to the river. So it's a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, it's huge river.
I know, that's
It's
right.
not like you can swim to the edge,
I know.
fall
That's
in.
right. Yeah, that's right. That's fun. And you said you did like a 30-day wilderness trip
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, kind of embarrassing, but
Good. Tell us all about it. I've already been embarrassed. You can go now.
kind of embarrassing. But when I was 15, I ran away from home,
Okay.
and so my dad and my brother came and collected me from my friend's house, and my parents sent me on a survival trip. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Oh
those.
yeah. This is yes. What?
Really? Yeah.
Not by
So
name necessarily, but like the Outward Bound kind of thing.
I remember maybe like 10 years after I'd gone on this survival trip that they had a TV show about it, about these kids that would go out on this survival trip, and they had all this equipment and all these fancy jackets and sleeping bags, and I was like, hey, that's not what it's like at all. That's not what survival's like.
What was yours like?
We had like, I, well, my mom told me I was going to camp. This is so embarrassing.
Okay, hold on. We gotta set the scene here. You're mad, you run away from home, you're found, they
Yeah.
collect you and they say you're going to camp, but they're just sending you away for like we're gonna get her mind right.
Yeah, I mean, she's gonna appreciate her home when she gets back, right? So I'm not mad anymore. I was just, one of those things. But so I'm like, I'm going to camp. I'm going to camp. Like I'd never been to camp. So excited, going to camp. So I pack all my bags and everything, and I got my little stuffed animal, and I get on the my mom flew with me to Idaho. So we get off the plane, and we're going to get our baggage, and my mom's is like, okay, I have to say goodbye now. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Are you going to take me to camp? And these guys come and grab me and put me in a van.
Wait.
They put me in a van. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? So my mom takes all my luggage back home with her, and so and then we drove for hours out into the middle of nowhere.
Wait, hold on. You thought you were going to camp. She packed bags as if you were going to camp.
Yes.
And then she takes the bags with her. She's like, all right,
Bye.
you're on your own. And they throw a bag over your head and throw you in a van.
She grabbed the stuffed animal out of my arms, was like, okay, bye. You're on your own. So they drive us into the middle of nowhere. Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. There's 5 of us, 5 kids. I think 2 were from Washington, 2 were from California, and 1 was from the East Coast. But so they drive us to the shack, and they gave us our gear. We had our hiking boots, a pair of hiking socks, thick socks, and 1 pair of jeans, and 1 t-shirt, and 1 button-down shirt, and 1 like hoodie. And then we had a tarp, and then we had like an army issue wool blanket and a knife. and a comb, and I think a toothbrush. I think we had a toothbrush and a rope. And then they showed us how to put all our things into the blanket, roll it up, put the tarp over it, and then, wrap it with the rope, and then you'd make it into a backpack. And then off we went. We started hiking, and we were just like, what is going on? All of us kids. We're just like, I can't believe I'm out here. About the first couple days, I remember it was snowing, and you
With an army issue wool blanket. Was it freezing? You had to be freezing.
so cold. That's why I felt so bad when you guys were freezing. I was like, oh, I know how that feels. I remember it was probably like the second day on survival when I woke up and I was just covered in snow, maybe about an inch. And they're like, all right, let's get up, let's move. And it's true. You got to get up and start moving, or else you just lay there and give up on life. But and the first week they gave us a can of peaches, like that 14-ounce can, and then it was so good. We ate our peaches, and then that's how we would make our food, is in that can for the whole 30 days. But we would live off the land and eat the vegetable, the plants. And they would give us every week. They would give us like a cup of rice, a cup of lentils, and a cup of flour. And then the rest was just plants.
What'd you find? Was there an objective? Was there teaching? Was there anything going on with it? Or was it just like...
No, I think the whole thing was you were just going to be thankful for what you have at home.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make this so hard for you to survive. You just cannot wait to get home.
Do you remember any kind of like progression psychologically or emotionally throughout that thing?
I was in complete despair for the first week, partly because it was so cold, and then I can't believe they've done this to me. They don't
just
love
mad
me.
At your parents.
They obviously don't love me. Why would they do this to me? But as time went on, it warmed up. I started really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Eating the pack. I was like, come on, let's go. And we would have to do certain tasks, every day, like start your own fire using like a bow drill. Or they had like a rock. If you found one of these rocks, then you were pretty well off, because I can't remember what it's called, but if you hit it with your knife, it'll spark.
Flint.
So most of the time we'd start our own fires with that, but you had to become proficient at the bow drill, which was very difficult. I don't know if you've ever tried it. With the willow, you get the soft wood.
Yeah.
And then
Wait, hold on. So I've seen people do it, and I've tried it myself, but I wouldn't know how to go find the right wood or any of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, you just get a soft wood, and then the branch that you use is a harder wood. I can't remember which kind it was, but then you just tie the rope around with the bow, and then you start to make some sparks.
I can see why the flint was a prize.
Oh yeah, that we held that on close to our hearts.
Or barter with it for like all of their food.
Look at
I'll tell you what, I'll give you my flint if you'll go forage for me for 2 days.
Oh, I don't know. It was, I was really having fun.
So you were disappointed to go home. You were like, oh, it's over?
No, like, I was, like, I could have kept going, but I did. I was 15. I really did miss my parents and my home and my friends. So, one day, towards the end, before we get to the end, one of the things that we did to stay warm was we would sleep on coal beds because we didn't have tents. So we would dig a 2-foot hole and throw some rocks in there, and that's where we would make our fire for the night, and we would cook on that. And then after we were done, we'd cover it with dirt and sleep on top of that. So that's how we kept warm.
Yeah.
The only bad thing about that is the steam comes up and gets you soaking wet.
All that, all that, that would be terrible, all that condensation.
But, it wasn't so bad because by then it started to warm up and you would dry out pretty quickly. But it was quite an experience. Oh, wow. It was like, I remember one day we got to have trout because we had the two leaders, they were husband and wife, and this is what they did, for a living. They'd take us out.
So this is their operation.
They take kids out, and then they come home for a week and then take another group of kids out. This is their life. And
they were either like the most generous and kind people on the planet or like extremely sadistic. Like it's one of the two.
The husband, he was kind. The wife, more like a drill sergeant type.
Okay. Yeah.
Get up, get it done.
Yeah.
Realize what you're doing.
Can you imagine living that cycle over and over again with 5 kids? Like they drop a new 5 off, and this is what you do over and over again.
I know.
Oh,
and then
goodness.
That first week has to be terrible for them every time. It was like kids are crying and refusing to move and throwing a fit. Or I don't know. It was a really good experience. But just one day towards the end, we were on one side of a little hill, and they were like, well, you guys, you've gone through this and you've gone through that. The last 4 or 5 days of the survival was being solo, so we were all by ourselves for 4 or 5 days. That was kind of scary because I was afraid of like snakes and mountain lions and stuff like that, because I had seen a mountain lion on the trail. But that was a lot of quiet time and just reflecting and what do you want to do with the rest of your life type of stuff. So after solo, we hiked for I don't know, 5-10 miles, and then they said, all right, you guys see this hill? Your parents are on the other side of the hill. We just all took off running full steam ahead and just crying. And I'll never forget. I couldn't run fast enough to my parents, and we had to run. It was like 100 yards or something. So that was, I did get to, my experience was just like a little whisper compared to yours, but I did, I could feel like the desperation at times, and I could feel like when something good happens to you, I could just feel that joy also when I was reading the book. And I didn't know that there was a thing, such a thing as trail magic. So that was really fun to hear about. Because one time we happened upon this abandoned, when I was on Sororo, we happened upon this abandoned, like it was just a shed. And we were just kind of looking around, and underneath the sink was this canister, like a 5-gallon canister of this sugar. And we just thought that was the greatest gift. And then she was like, no, you can't have that sugar. And then we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And she's like, okay, everybody gets a half a cup of sugar. So that was like a little trail magic.
Oh, that's so great.
And I didn't know the kids were eating so much candy just because of the calories that they had to consume. And I felt so bad because it was Halloween and that's the candy holiday. I'm not really big into Halloween. I don't like it. But I was like, man, I didn't even give him any candy. Like, what kind of a person are you?
Oh, listen, we were fine. We were in Southern California. That's at the point that the kids were doing their own shopping because, we had supplied them and it was the same meal over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And it would get really, really awful when we were doing the selecting.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to Southern California, we would just show up at the supermarket and we'd be like, all right, meet you at the register. So there's no telling what they ate. Like it was all on them. We didn't care. There was a lot of cheese puffs and candy and who knows what.
Yeah.
But it was all them. So they got plenty of candy. I would be scared to think how much they got. But in theory, you burn through everything so fast, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what you
I
eat.
didn't even think about that. I just thought, yeah. But it was just so nice to be able to reconnect, with you guys. Such a great experience. I brag about you guys all the time. Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day and I said, "Oh, I'm reading a book. Do you remember my friends that walked from Canada to Mexico? Oh, the strawberries?" I'm like, yeah, the Strawbridges. Everybody knows you.
Oh,
You're
that's
famous.
great.
You're famous in my
Yeah,
circles.
as long as you tell people, that's what I've told people. My uncle always says when I come home from these trails, I'd sit with him and Uncle Timo. I don't know if you ever got to meet him.
I probably
He's
did.
6'9", 300 pounds, giant man, and just
I
big,
did. I
like
met him.
big head. Oh, he's the best. But every time I come home, I'll go see him and he'll say, Vince, what's it like to have done something nobody else in the world's ever done and be a joke in your hometown? So there's just tiny, tiny, tiny little subculture of people that really, really admire what we did. And the rest of the world has no idea. So it's totally fun. But what a fun, I mean, it was such a fun thing. And it really is interesting to hear your story about survival, which, by the way, is far more rigorous and austere in many ways than what we did. But holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Did it have the
a
effect?
real survival.
Did it have the effect that your parents had hoped for you and them?
Yeah. I mean, the experience of being out there without your family, alone, just in your mind, and you guys talk about getting your trail legs. You just hit a certain point where you're just going and you're not even thinking about it anymore. You're just walking,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you kind of come out of yourself.
Yeah.
So that was really good for me, just because the physical part of it, about it, and then just, thinking about your life, thinking about what you're grateful for, which, what you take for granted, all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. And
Yeah.
plus, the experience of being out there. My brother was so jealous.
Oh, really?
He was not a stinker when he was a teenager. He wasn't a stinker, so he didn't get to go to survival. But when I came home and told him that all the stuff that I had done, he's just always been jealous of me.
I played it wrong. I should have run away.
I should have got a speeding ticket or something.
That is so great. Well, you know what? When we were on the CDT and June was kind of having those moments of like deep despair and
Yeah.
like we were really confused by it and anger like we hadn't seen before. And I just kept coming back to Monica was like, we got to get her off trail and go home and get her with a therapist and all that stuff. And we just kind of, both of us kept coming back to, the last stitch effort that a person would make for a kid like this is to send them to one of these wilderness survival places. We're already here. We may as well keep going and see what it does for her, So it was kind of like in our head. We didn't know that a lot
Really?
of it was medically induced. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow. I didn't even know that those things still existed.
I think they do. I think they do. I think probably the one that you were involved in would be shut down, like after somebody heard this podcast. Or it sounds a little on the edge. How did your parents find it? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know, but when I got home, I was looking through some paperwork on the desk, and I saw the brochure, and I was like, oh, here it is. This is what they did. But, I wasn't.
What kind of marketing person gets approached by the husband and wife team? And they're like, all right, here's the thing. We want to sell a death march and a survival situation for kids to parents. The parents that want to get rid of their kids for a while and see if nature can fix them.
Yeah. I think some parents, they just don't have the skills, or they can't cope with, a teenager. They're just like, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah, there's something about getting away from all of it.
Yeah.
There's something about the rhythms of night and morning, of cold and hunger and consequence and all those things. There's something about the rhythms of that does, I do think it can snap you back into a right relationship with the world around you. Like, I really think there's something to it.
I think so too.
So, yeah, what a crazy.
And then going back to it, when I first heard about you guys doing this, I was like, wow, this is going to be really great for all of them, not just the kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it was. And I think I mentioned that I know I mentioned that in the book at some point. But thinking through that shared experience of suffering with your kids is really a unique experience to life. It's a lot easier to just kind of coach them in the awesome ways that they ought to sort of face challenge, but to face it with them, I think, is a really significant experience.
Yeah.
So.
And Monica too, doing it in all that pain, it makes it even harder.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this a couple times, but when we came home, there's a guy that is a family friend that I was walking everywhere, and I walked up to the Starbucks, the one on Lake Miriam. You probably know the Starbucks, and I walked in there, and he was sitting at a table, and he said that he had severe back pain that was chronic, and I just started crying and gave him a big hug, because I was like, I don't know how people do. Like, I've seen the difference. Like, it changes Monica's personality.
Yeah.
On that trail, it changed her personality in a moment. So really difficult.
Yeah, that chronic pain would just take a lot of joy out of life.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't believe she did that. She's like, for women.
Yes, you had a friend around at your house like one night, and I can remember I was like, the question was very funny. The question was, where do you use the bathroom out there? Are there like outhouses every so often? And I can remember just thinking, this is so funny how foreign this experience is to people. But then not too far before we got to you, I guess. No, it might have been after. I think it was after we were with you. We had some cousins come out to visit us on trail one night. And I can remember we're sitting there, and I think I do mention this in the book, but we're sitting there by the side of the road, and Georgie says, hey, Dad, where's the shovel? And I said, Georgie, there's a privy right up there. You don't want to use the privy? And she said, a privy? That's gross.
I like Mother Nature. I'm used to Mother Nature now.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was so fun. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have never been camping. So they can't wrap their mind around like what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a renter here. She was renting a room from me when you guys came and stayed. And she was she had a really good time too, watching you guys. And I remember when you guys left us, and she was like, wow, you have really cool friends. And I was like, yes, I do.
That's awesome. We're really cool in small doses. Like, you don't want to get... Oh, that's fun.
She was just amazed. It's amazing though. And it was cool to listened to Monica, and she talked to a couple of ladies. It was really cool that they had taken their families as well. And then I thought about, like, one was in Washington, one was, I think, in Michigan, and then here's Monica in Florida. You guys are this big triangle, and I was just thinking, wow, there's other people like that out here
Not many.
that are doing this.
But what's fun is it
Not
really
many.
is more accessible. So when we started researching, there weren't a lot of precedent for us to look at. There was one husband and wife that had taken a kid, their daughter, down the Pacific Crest Trail. There was another father who'd hiked with his young son all three trails. That was one that had happened. And then there was a family the very year that we were doing it that was hiking the Appalachian Trail, but we didn't have a lot of stories to compare what our idea was. We didn't have a lot of stories to compare it to. But now I really do think that it is more doable than I think people know, and so I think it's kind of fun to have that sort of enter the realm of possibility, and so I do think it would be fun to, inspire is such an annoying word, but to help people wrap their mind around the fact that this thing is a very doable thing for very normal people and normal families. And I just can't think of a better activity to create all that time with kids, because our about the best thing we do in all of life is the kids stuff, like that kid Kaia is that's a special person that you brought into the world, and you got to mother and see her grow into adulthood. And it's just, I imagine if I said, Angie, what's the best things you've done in all the world, it would probably, like Kaia would be, if not the top.
It's hard to remember life before. Once you have children, it's hard to even remember what you were thinking about or what you like to do or things that mattered to you. She loved camping so much, and we camped quite a bit while she was growing up. But one of the biggest regrets I have in life is just letting myself be consumed by work. Just work. And if I could change anything, then it would be that. I would slow down, smell the flowers, as they say.
Find the sugar in the shed under the sink and enjoy half a cup of sugar.
Look for the sugar. Look for the sugar in life.
That's all for this episode of Pretty Good at Talking. Thanks to Angie for not just her time with us on the PCT, but also for sharing her own incredible story. It's conversations like these that remind me how every trail story contains other trail stories, each one teaching us something about resilience, friendship, and finding our way. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to dive deeper into our family's journey along the Pacific Crest Trail, you can find Pretty Good at Walking wherever books are sold. The audio book version is available on Audible. For those who like to hold a physical book, you can grab a copy at Amazon. Just search for Pretty Good at Walking by Vince Strawbridge. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes life's best moments happen when we're just pretty good at something, not perfect at it. So get out there and do it. See you on the next episode.